Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the very first installment of Scarlette Speaks. This is going to be my solo show, which will be a lot shorter than the regular show that I'm on with Amy Jade, the Scarlette and Jade show. On these shows that I will be posting hopefully weekly, or more so depending on how busy I get and how many questions I get, we'll be addressing different questions people might have and that I can help navigate or answer for them in the community or outside the community. Sexual health in any part of the community or outside is essential, and unfortunately, I think the education is lacking. Now, my name is Madam Scarlette, been in the community for over 30 years, and you're probably asking yourself, well, why would you decide to do this? Well, sexual health and the education in some cases seems to be sadly lacking, and a lot of people have questions. And it's better if there is someone who has been in the community for a long time, has seen an awful lot, and has been educated in so many ways and dealt with an awful lot of people, that I feel finally at this point, I have enough information to be able to provide sound and informative answers for anybody who might have questions for me. Now, people might say, well, what makes you an expert? I'm not necessarily an expert. I'm one individual who's just lived a very long time in the community, and I've seen an awful lot. I have a lot of people that talk to me, have asked me a lot of questions. I've dealt with a lot of submissives and other individuals in this great and wonderful life I've had. And I feel that I have an awful lot to offer in terms of educating people and making them feel that they can make safe and sound decisions. Again, any information or advice I provide for you is merely my advice. This does not mean that I am a professional doctor or anything like that. I'm not, obviously, but I am just another individual who can helpfully answer some burning questions that you may have in your minds. Now, the BDSM community, a lot of people ask, well, why do people go into BDSM? No, there are so many reasons why people enjoy that community, or just in general play. Some people might say vanilla sex, for lack of a better term, which is just your standard basic, no crazy kinky or fun stuff or whatever that some people might see it as, maybe boring. So they may see it as a way to spice up their life and have a little fun by introducing a little rope play or a little spanking, some fun toys and other things like that. Some people love role play, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Again, as long as there's consent and it's safe and consensual. And those are terms you're going to hear an awful lot from me on this show and on the longer show that I usually do on Sundays. But safe, sane, consensual play is always the primary thing that you have to understand going into this. This means that you are both consenting, you both agree to what you're doing, that you know that you're both going to have established boundaries, that you are happy with the situation, and that you know that if there's anything goes wrong, you have a way to say, hey, that's it, I've had enough, we're done. Now, an interesting thing that I just thought about when I was considering today's show are just different aspects of play. People talk about things like bondage, discipline, spanking, corporal punishment, other things like that. There are so many flavors of this, and I'll have to go over any number of these topics, and I'm sure there'll be lots of questions about so many things, and that's absolutely fine. I have no problem with answering any questions people might have that they might think are odd or peculiar, and they're probably not. They're just innocent and very informational questions that other people may be too afraid to ask and put forth out there. So if you have something that you think might be like just a little different to ask, you go right ahead and do so. I'll provide, space in the link down below. You can just ask a question on there, or you can message me if you know me on any other of the boards that I'm on as Madam Scarlette, or some of the other places that people know me from. And you can just message me privately and I can address that question for you without revealing who you are. Now, people ask about safe and sane, and they're like, well, why are these terms important? Well, in BDSM, people will set up a safe word, and safe word could be anything like green, yellow, red. Those are the standards. That's a basic one. It's been used for a very long time, just like the stoplight. Very standard, very basic. Most people understand that, and that's a perfect way to do it. That's red, yellow, green. You know what those mean? perfect, use that. You could use things like a strange word that you may not otherwise say in general conversation, and that's a good safe word. That just lets you know that you have a cutoff point. There's your boundary. You have to say, I don't like this, I don't like that. Sometimes you have to try different things out, knowing that it may be a little awkward at first and you don't like it. You can always say no, stop. Now, a big thing that a lot of people think is kind of bizarre is aftercare. And some people say, well, what's aftercare? Well, let me explain aftercare to you. And the funny thing is, it's not just relegated to BDSM, but unfortunately, a lot of people don't seem to understand those cues in regular sexuality. So aftercare is, in the BDSM community, making sure that after you've had a very heavy, intense session, because you've gone from a whole rich fantasy life where you may have costumes, or you just may have intense sessions of tying person up, mummifying, whatever, sensory deprivation, those are all very intense and incredible things. Wordplay, any of those things, you're going from a normal, like basic, average, everyday situation into a very intense situation, and you're ramped up. You're going into dom and subspace. This is a whole different realm that some people can achieve, and it's absolutely wonderful. I've been there. A number of my subs have been there. Some people may not achieve it. It really depends on the dynamic you have with the person that you're playing with. And this is just like in everyday relationships too, like your spouse. You may have a great dynamic. Some people are just, they're okay, they're good, but some people are truly intense and they feel it. It's almost like there's an intense fire between the two of them, and it's just phenomenal. So when you're in the midst of play, you're in a whole different situation, you're in a whole different world, and you're enjoying yourself and things are going great. And then you're kind of bringing it back down again. And then when you got to the point where you're stopping, you can't just stop and that's it. That's, you pack up your stuff, you go down to your regular everyday life, or you leave, whatever the situation is, whatever the dynamic is. It's different than that, because you can't just go from racing along to stopping dead. It'd be like being in a car race and you got that euphoric, intense feeling, and then you just go ahead and, yeah, I'm going to go for a normal life. And no, it doesn't work that way for many people. So having aftercare is the way of letting a person know everything's okay. You can soothe them. There may be ways of doing things. Communication is a huge part of the whole lifestyle. Like, people don't understand that communication is necessary in every part of life, but in this community, it's an important and very vital part. So communicating to them afterwards, saying everything's good, how are you doing, asking them important questions like, are you feeling okay? Is anything, do we need to talk about anything? Are you safe? Do you feel good? You can soothe their skin if you need to. I often feel that the important thing to do, especially spanking and stuff, is to soothe the skin, make it feel better afterwards. You can apply lotion if you agree upon one that's good for you, oil, whatever, just to make the skin feel better. That also makes it feel a lot smoother and softer as well. So those are important things, but just letting the person know that you're okay and they're okay, and just communicating that you can go back to your normal life afterwards, but just make sure that aftercare is present. And this even happens in situations where people, oh, I don't want to deal with this person anymore. Communicate. I know people love the idea of ghosting. Don't do it. It's awful. Nobody likes it. It's garbage. It's not a nice thing to do. Consider how it feels to you if somebody did that to you. It's not a nice thing. Nobody ever likes it. Try not to do it, and especially not in intense situations, but just don't overall. It's garbage. Just don't be that person. So the funny thing is, I thought about this and I think, okay, in our situation in the community, people talk about aftercare, but in normal human sexuality, where you're not role playing or having, that fantasy life experience, I thought about this and I said, I'm thinking to myself, when people do this in regular sexuality, where a person might afterwards say, oh, what are you thinking? And you see that trope on movies and TV, and people are going to laugh probably when they hear this. And they see it on TV and they're like, ha, that person just made that joke. No, it's not actually funny. Think about it for a second. Even in a sexual experience, sensual experience, whatever, when you're dealing with another human being, And you're sharing an experience with another individual. You're giving yourself to them. Like, may not be as intense as BDSM, but in just giving yourself to another human being, that's still sharing an intense experience for a lot of people. And for most people, it should be, really, because it's important. It's connecting with another human being and communicating on a physical level. So when people say things like, what are you thinking? It's not them going, oh, well, I need to know your existence of life and what your philosophy is on things right now. It's more them asking, can you just let me know that things are good between us? Or just needing some reassurance. And there's nothing wrong with a little reassurance. Don't think it's funny. It's not amusing. It's just humans communicating and trying to find a connection and ensuring that that connection still stays even after that intense experience. So providing that little bit of reassurance actually helps that individual to deal with aftercare. And that is, in regular sensual experiences, very essential as well. And people don't seem to get that, but try to be more cognizant of it. Maybe just think of how you would feel if you're dealing with a first time experience or a different experience where you needed that bit of reassurance. And I'm sure every single one of us have dealt with it. That talking about it and feeling good afterwards, and then you can go about your regular day and then feel good about things. So this is my little tiny segment of Scarlette Speaks, my very first one. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you have any actual questions for me beside the ones I've addressed already, or ones that I can think of that I've heard over the years, please ask me. I'll be more than happy to help you out. Thanks for showing up, and I hope to see you again. Bye now.